You're very welcome under our Europe Dome. Today we're going to talk about plastic waste and the EU. First, two very important practical things. One of them is that we're being filmed. This is going to be on YouTube. If you don't want to be filmed, that's fine. Then we make sure you're not on the camera. But let me know now. Then we make sure.
We like it very much because we like it very much because we are never been on YouTube.
Exactly. This is your moment to be famous. So, and another very important thing is talk in the microphones. They don't make your voice louder, so it's not for here, but it's for on the video that we can hear your voice better.
Yeah.
So that's the two things. And yeah, everyone's welcome to walk in and out. Yeah, let's start. So we're going to talk about plastic waste. Is it fine?
Yeah.
And I actually first want to start with a very simple question. How do you experience plastic waste in your own life? Did you have some personal experience with it? And how does that show that there's a problem or not? So shall we just make a round at first?
I can start. So the first time I realized there was a problem with plastic, it was at the beach because I'm from the south of Spain, so I live nearby the beach, and I all the time see a lot of garbage and plastic bags in the sun, and at that moment I realized that we have a problem. And every time I go to the supermarket and I buy my fruits, they give me thousands of bags. And after I do my grocery shopping, I don't know what to do with the bags, and I realize that most of the people in Spain don't recycle, and I realize that there is plastic everywhere, and that we have a problem, and that we should try to avoid using plastic all the time for buying little things and for buying fruits, as it doesn't make sense to put everything in a plastic bags. So that's my experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have also experience with plastic. Recently, for example, I'm here in the Stay OK hostel, and there the cover for the pillow and the blankets are also packed in plastic. Even the towels, and I was like, oh, they buy us old stuff new, but then somebody told me they covered it all times up in plastic, so I was a little bit confused why they do this. I don't see there's more benefits of covering up in plastic. And even sometimes you see also in Germany it's like this, that everything is packed up single in plastic. So for maybe it's one two-stick packed in plastic, and I ask myself, for what? There's no reason to pack it single one. You can make it in a big box, and it's kind of dumb. And even the EU already banned it, or is banning it for one-use plastic, which can be changed by other stuff, for example wood or paper. And I think that's a good first step, but we have to make more effort to get rid of plastic, because we know plastic doesn't go down on the environment as a long time, and so I think we should take it down or reduce it very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to. Okay. Well, of course I agree there is too much plastic, but I have to say that I don't care that much about it. so that's my opinion.
But why not?
Huh?
Why don't you care?
Well, why?
Yeah, why? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good question.
No worries.
Yeah. I don't have an answer for that.
Okay, now I care a lot of plastic. We sell our food in a special natuur shop for food, and since 1 year they have bags to put your bread in, and it seems like plastic, but it is plastic that you can throw away in the nature because it is
degradable.
Yeah. So I wonder me if a little shop can do that, why cannot everybody do that with the plastic that can I've been in America, and when you go there to the supermarket, everything what you buy, they put it in a plastic bag. So we were with the family, and we said, no, don't do it, and they don't understand us, because we had our own bags with us. So there is a lot of work to do in the world to reduce the plastic?
Yeah, what I was actually personally thinking about, and it also really relates to Texel, I think, is that a few months ago, I think it was, there was this boat in the Waddenzee, and it how do you say, capsized? It kind of, like a few containers fell off, and it was a boat that was transporting plastic stuff. And all these plastic got into the sea, and it all came to the Waddeneilanden, so all these islands in the north of the Netherlands. And like really the beaches were covered with plastic, and like people actually, a lot of citizens actually went there to pick up the plastic and clean it up and stuff. I was not there in the Netherlands by then, but I remember it was this huge thing that suddenly there was plastic everywhere. And in the Netherlands, I feel like we don't think so much about the plastic waste problem, but then suddenly it was there, like on the beach. For
okay, but it's like oil. Everybody is fears when an oil tanker goes down. A lot of oil, but it is but a little bit. Also, the plastic, what you call to the plastic and oil, what every day goes in the sea, but you don't see. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, I want to add something to what you said. So I think that we are not very aware of the problem with plastic because we are very used to this cycle in which we buy things that are covered in plastic and then we throw them and we don't see that plastic again. But in fact, this plastic doesn't recycle and we eat it because we eat fish, we eat food covered by plastic, so we are eating that plastic and that is affecting our health. So even if we are not aware, plastic is affecting our life and our environment.
How so?
You want to add something?
Yeah, I think we used to plastic because it's kind of handy, yeah? When somebody invented plastic, it was something new. It was a scientific envelopment which was very great in the first time because we don't see the issues what is connected with plastic, and you can produce plastic in a very easy way. You see this bottle over there covered in plastic, the rubbish bin is in plastic, so the balloons over there is plastic because it's it's handy to do it, it's fast to do, it's not very much effort to do it, not much energy, so it's cheap. And we're living in a economy which used to do cheap, so the price is low, so everybody can afford to pay it. So we have to learn again that everything what cheap is not good. And I think this is a kind of problem which the politics have to tackle. But we see all times the companies say, "Oh, we are reducing our plastic," but in the end they don't reduce on self-set targets. So I think the politics have to make rules and say in a way, for example, if you produce plastic, you have to pay a small fee or a big fee, so that it's not that cheap to make plastic, and it's more that you multiple time use plastic. So not, for example, a cup of coffee, you use it one time and then you throw it away. I'm working at the gas station and I know at one day I think more than 200 one-use coffee cups I go over my desk, and so I know all these times it's not recyclable because there's a small plastic thing in there, and this is small things that you can change. You can bring your own cup, and in my gas station even you get a small discount, and I think this shows the problem because it shows that it is normal to get this one-use coffee cup, and it's unnormal to bring your own cup. I think it would be more better if you have if the normal price is with your own cup, and when you use the one-time cup, you have to pay more money. Okay. So that makes also the price thinks, oh, when I use my own cup, it's the normal price. When I use the other one, I have to pay extra. That's other mindsetting.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's why we have. That's why we need Europe, because one country cannot change this, but all together we can do it. Like not smoking. I think it is a world wonder. 1992, everybody was smoking, and now these days Nobody's of a few smoke, and it is only possible because Europe forbidden to smoke everywhere. So we people can do a lot if there is a central power to stimulate us to do it.
So adding to what he said, I also think that Europe has an important role in tackling this issue. But the first step is us as individuals. So if each individual gets concerned about this problem and the European Union and national governments talk about it, I think citizens should be more involved in the change. And I think that every time we have a problem, we should first think in ourselves, what are we doing, how are we affecting the environment, our society, and start with us first and then look at the bigger picture.
On this issue, I have a little bit different point of view. I think it's not in the first place for the individuum to tackle this problem, but for example, now you say you use multiple times coffee cups. Okay, that's good. Then you reduce some cups. But for example, this with the container, I don't think if you take your multiple cups that the container won't fall off. I think these issues are so global. One single person can't do it. You can make awareness, and this is, I think, also is part of it. I think you have to do once, but don't you refuse to do the other one. But in first step, I think this is a political issue and not an issue of everybody for its own. Because we are a society, we are living together, and there we have to care about each other and have to talk what we like as a society to do. And if we like together to take plastic down, we can take plastic down, but it won't do. The companies won't do it if we go maybe here in Texel, if the whole Eastland is protesting against plastic. I don't think that the big company will say, oh, okay, when Texel is protesting, we won't do it. I think there must be political regulations, and I think the way of money about the market is the best one to doesn't get into the market so strong, so that the state is more like in Soviet times. I think it must be free but regulated, so that the target we like to reach, that we can reach it. And I think this is a target which can be reached very fast if you like to. But for the time there isn't a party in power which really like to do this, really like to tackle this problem. They're all talking about, but that's all. They're sitting there and talking, and that's it.
Would you like to react, Sil?
I don't have anything to say about this.
Okay. Now it is crazy that you must pay more for bio products, more than for products who make bees and other insects dead. But it is also 40 years is still going on that. So it is time that the governments in Europe say no. It must be on the industry who makes good food or good things without vervuiling, polluting. That is cheaper than you are wasting time. So. No.
Thank you. We have been talking a little bit about politics needs to make this change. So we're actually talking about political will, which doesn't seem to be there currently. What do you guys, it's a question to everyone, think is necessary to create this political will? Does anyone have an idea?
Who?
How can we create the political will to change something about the environment? And maybe, yeah?
Politici, dus you are politica, you must go on work and shout follow me, because I know what we have to do here. What the young people and the young people say, the old industry must change, and not tomorrow, no, yesterday.
So I think that we should raise awareness in consumers, because consumers, if they change their ways of purchasing, that has an effect on companies. So companies will probably change their way of operating, and also this can be helped with the aid of the European Union. So if the European Union has banned these plastics of one use, and also consumers stop using plastic and start demanding to companies other ways of carrying the grocery and all of this, I think that could be a solution.
I think, especially in a democracy, you have to go to your MVPs, for example, and emphasize every time that you like to change this stuff. In Germany, it's like that the total country is divided in small parts, and from every part there's one person in parliament, in the Bundestag, which from this part of the country. It's small. I think about 250 are kind of this small areas are there, and you can go to your local MP, and then all times emphasize, I like to change this. And I think if you go there, and even on the maybe also on a low level, on state hall, city hall, for example, there's also a way to make awareness and to emphasize the politics. I'm for myself also a part of a party, so I want to get into the party and change the party, so the party has the other image, to make a more environment friendly image, to make more tackle issues like this environment, because I think we're running out of time. And this is only a small part, plastic, but there are also bigger issues, climate change, for example. And I think it's now the time to do something. And we see Fridays for Future, for example. If the young people do something like that, some old man came over there and say, "Oh, you have to go to school." Then I'm asking, in a democracy, we are here in Democracy Alive, we have to fight for our targets which we like to reach. And this also means sometimes that you have to break with old rules. And this we are doing for the time. And I think this is a part of a living democracy, and this shows also the young people care about democracy. Yeah. And I think every politician should stand up and clap in the hand. Either then sit there and say, "Oh, you have to go to school."
Rachel, shortly, welcome to our new guest. We're talking about plastic waste in the EU. Important thing, we're filming everything. If you don't want to be on the camera, let me know. Okay. Is it fine? Fine. Yeah, and if you talk into the microphone, that's important for the video. So we were talking about personal experiences with plastic waste and how we think plastic waste, or who should tackle plastic waste, who is responsible. So would you like to give some input?
So I think that it's quite difficult for an individual to make the decision not to use plastic waste, just because whenever you buy food, whenever you buy almost anything, there's so much plastic waste around it in the packaging. And I think this is really something that we need to deal with, both on the national level but also on the EU level, that this needs to be something that's driven by government to stop companies using all this plastic in their packaging, because there are alternatives. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nog zeggen?
Ik heb niets te zeggen.
Okay. I agree. Yeah. From which country you are?
Sorry, I'm from Sweden.
Sweden. Okay. Now we're from Holland, and they are German and Spain.
So how is the take of Sweden? Because I have the feeling that at least in the Netherlands, we all think that Sweden is this really green country, or everything is better in that sense.
I think this is part of the problem, that we think we're this amazing country, and we're so green, when there's still a lot that we can do as well. That all the apples, all the avocados, everything still comes in plastic packaging, and it doesn't need to. So just because you're good doesn't mean you can't get much better.
Would you like to add something? Because before you said you don't think the problem is so big. Do you think we need to do something about the problem?
I think that the problem will solve itself in the end. Because there is the movement from the youth. The youth doesn't take it anymore. There is so much plastic waste. But well, I'm nearly 60, and I see that there is still, everybody is using it. I'm using it also. and it's very, very difficult to turn this around. So, well, good luck, the young people. But you have to do a lot of work. You have to put a lot of effort in it to change it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Now, I think I'm also almost 60, but I think full power. It's a big battle, but do your best, because the not smoking affair is also succeed. So we can do it. We can really do it.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've been talking about politics a lot and about citizens a lot. What do you think about companies? What is their role in this whole debate? And should they take personal responsibility, or should they be forced by the government? Or how do you guys see this?
Like the companies, they look to each other. So from how he don't do it, so I do it also not. So if there is not a rule, I do it on my own old-fashioned way. So it never stops. So if you want to change a company, then you have to make rules by government, and then it will succeed. Because then you have a same level play between companies. They have the same rules. Because if you do a lot of bio work, then you maybe it's more cost. But if everybody do bio, then it's the same level.
So adding to that, I am currently working in the corporate social responsibility department of an international company. So I'm very much aware of how companies can reduce their impact in the social sphere, in the economic sphere, and also taking into account the environment. And I think that, as you pointed out, governments should push companies to behave in a responsible way. And also, as I said before, I think that consumers have a lot of impact, because companies depend on consumers, and if we are responsible consumers and we start buying from companies that are responsible, with socially responsible, environmentally responsible, I think that we could also achieve that these companies change their way of acting and their way of impacting. And so yes.
I can't agree really with it, because now I have a question for you. Which company is then environmentally friendly? Which have a good image? There is for the time no really option to change. Every company almost use plastic, and if you like to make the responsibility to the consumers, I think there must first be an option for the consumers that they can choose, and they can really choose between a good option and the not so good option, because there's many use of plastic. But it's often kind of hard to figure out how much plastic is used there, even for example, where it's coming something from. It's sometimes hard to figure out when they're standing maybe the US. The US is big, it's a big country, so it can be from Florida or from New York, so I don't know. So that's why I think there must be it more obvious for the consumer what they are consuming. This on many levels, that mustn't be on the environmental level. And I think even if you are a company, you have a responsibility for what you're producing. You're producing something for the people that they can, I think, in my opinion, that they can live a better life. And this also means not only because the consumers like to have it, that I have to produce it, because I have responsibility to my staff, to the consumers, and to the society. And to the society even means the upcoming society. These are not living, and often hidden costs, for example, for taking out oil, they are not paid, because there isn't a company or a country who likes to have money for it. And I think that's why it's kind of hard if the companies say, yeah, if the consumers would care about it, we would be different. But I think there's also for somebody a responsibility about the subject, about this issue, that I have to tell also myself, okay, I have to change, because I see it's not good. And sometimes not even the consumer must be that intelligent, because we don't know everything. The companies know where they get their stuff from. This is from Germany, this is from Great Britain. And I can't figure it out, or I can really hard figure it out, and that's why I think there's more the responsibility at the companies, because also they have more money. I'm only a small one. I go to school and work at the weekend at the gas station. I'm not that rich, so I can only make a small change. But I think a company with millions or trillions of money every year they make have more possibilities and can make also a bigger statement. But I think for the time there's only makeup to say, oh, we are all environment friendly and we are aware that there's problems with plastic, but that's only talking, and in the background they still take the environment down. Not like that in Europe, but more, for example, in Africa or Asia, where third world countries, developing countries that aren't that strong, like in Europe, the government, for example.
Yeah, I think that's why it can be difficult for consumers to know what is actually an environmentally friendly company and what is a company that is just trying to make themselves look environmentally friendly. And I think that if we look at, for example, H&M, the big clothing company, they did this big thing around, oh, you can bring your clothes back to us and we'll deal with them in an environmentally friendly way. But then there was a news story about how they were burning hundreds of thousands of jeans in Denmark because they hadn't managed to sell them. So it can be difficult to know fact from fiction in that area.
So answering to the facts thing, I live it every day. For example, there are compliance systems and there are standards which are applied to companies. For example, my company has over 800 everything is controlled. Also the lights that they don't I don't know how to say these bulbs that do not consume that much. And also about plastic, they bring their own mug, they don't use plastic things, everything is recycled. So there are ways. And also, for example, when you go to the toilet, the liters, when you flush, they're controlled. Everything is controlled by an external company. So there are external companies that can assure that this is going on and that this is true. And another example is that my company, for example, shares all this information to the public, so it's transparent. So every person can go into the website and read about it. So there are actually ways of knowing and being aware of how companies are doing.
You guys have to go soon. Do you want to have a short closing statement, like one last thing you would like to add to the discussion?
No, I think it is very pleasant to talk with people from other countries about one subject, and I think that we think all the same. And so that is nice to hear. Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah.
Very nice. It was very nice. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, we have to go to work. So. Have a nice day. Ja, heet Kai. Tot ziens.
Tot ziens, dank jullie wel. Dank jullie wel.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Can we go?
If you need to go, you need to go. Do you want to have a short closing statement? Just one last thing to say?
My closing statement will be that I think that we are all aware of the problem and we should start to think how we can address this problem, and that we have to be part of the change. And I'm so happy that we are all concerned by the same things. And thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. The rest, do you stay?
I will leave too. Should I say some words? Yeah, I'm really glad that this platform exists, because I think nowadays it's very important that you have a third place where you can talk to people which not are your opinion. And I think this is very important, especially for democracy. This festival called Democracy Alive, and that's not a name, that's also a spirit. And I'm very glad that this spirit is also living here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will continue the trend and also leave then. This is a good initiative that you have. You talk to normal citizens from the EU about issues like this, and I think it's good. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Hi.
Hi, what did I miss?
You just came at the moment that everyone was about to leave.
Okay, I'll come back.
Yes, nice. Do you want to talk a little bit together? Or?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so we were talking about plastic waste and the EU.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually started with the question, like, do you have any personal experience with plastic waste in which you could see that there's indeed a problem with plastic waste?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I've back before I became green and kind of more aware, I was traveling quite a bit around, and one of the places I stayed the longest was Costa Rica. And you go there all bright and brim, ready to do some nature conservation, but most of the nature conservation work that gets done in those places is related to just plastic picking, and because of the currents, it's a corner of the world where you end up with Chinese fridges on your beach and like pairs of shoes and later on in life, I mean, I met a couple who had decided to build a house on a beach in Turkey just from plastic waste. So there's a lot that you can do, and I think my mantra from now on has become reuse. Recycle may not always be enough, I believe.
Yeah.
How did they build that house?
Okay, did they build the house?
I'll do that for you. Okay. So it's a really beautiful part of Turkey. It's called the Likya Way, and it's very reminiscent of actually the European culture that was once in Turkey. So it's a whole part of Turkey where they're just ancient Roman and Greek ruins. And just walking that trail, it's a little bit like Santiago de Compostela. It's a really long trail. And you end up on a beach and it's deserted and you think you're alone. And then basically in the pine woods behind, a couple had decided to settle there 2 months before I arrived. And the way they did it was they had found something like 10 meters of an abandoned shipwreck of pipes, just pipes. And they wrapped them in something that looks a little bit like this structure, but much smaller, like in a cocoon or an igloo. They wrapped them all around like this, and they used wires to bring the pipes up into a structure. And then above that, they put all the polystyrene that they had found. So, like a lot of polystyrene, basically to do the insulation, and they covered it with a fisherman's nest. And all around that they had found like a really big cling film tube, abandoned cling film, like the ones that you use in canteens to cover things, to like put it in the fridge. And they basically wrapped the whole structure in cling film, put another fisherman's nest, and put pine needles on top. So it looked like a pine needle igloo. It was crazy.
And
it was crazy.
Like a really small house, so smaller than this.
Smaller than this, just the space for a double bed.
Nice. Wow.
And then abandoned umbrellas to make like a little pathway to the house. Just like umbrella for like 5 meters to their kitchen.
And do you know where they found this waste? Was it all on the beach?
All on the beach.
That's really crazy. So when talking about like this problem, who do you think needs to take the responsibility for the plastic waste problem? Is it the politics? Is it us? Is it companies? Is it someone else?
Well, I was really lucky to have a conversation about this with a European MEP a few weeks back, Frédéric Ries. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really interesting what they're doing right now with the newest incentive, and I would never have known about this if I hadn't worked for a European radio. So this is something worth noting, but it's to spread the responsibility. So in this new initiative, both the companies are going to be paying for it, or in the long term, maybe I think it's 2021. So there's an aspect of it, but then also there are going to be incentives for citizens to be more aware of it, and then lastly and most importantly, it's just going to disappear from the market.
What is exactly going to disappear then?
So it's you know those like balloon sticks that you get at McDonald's, and then all the things to stir your coffee, and then all the forks and knives that are plastic, all the plates that are plastic, and all the drinking cups.
It's actually the one-time use plastic, so to say.
It's not the only time that you use plastic. I mean, I think the most vicious.
No, I mean this plastic that we use one time and then we throw it away. This kind of
the
plastic.
single use.
Single use. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not enough, to be honest. Yeah, it's just like, I think that the most vicious kind, you know, it's the ones that wrap your vegetables, and like the ones that is like on top of like a thing of grapes, and it's the one that like you're just like boop. And I don't know if you do this. Tell me if you do this. Well, I realized that I have this weird reflex. It's called hopeful recycling. You know, I call it hopeful recycling. You know it's not gonna get recycled, but you still put it in the recycling bin. It's like, you're like, I don't know, like you kind of want to feel better about it. And it's like, you know, like the soft plastics that like wrap your vegetables or your fruits.
Those things are not getting recycled. I always put them in the recycle bin.
They don't get recycled.
I put everything that's plastic in the recycle. Because I live now in Germany for shortly, and this is more like a personal thing. Like I'm from the Netherlands, and there's only a limited amount of plastic stuff you can do in the bins. And in Germany you can put in everything, like also the little like where the peas are in. How do you call them? Blikje.
The cans?
The cans, indeed. You can also put them with the plastic and stuff. And on the one hand, I really like that because you can put everything in plastic and you feel like you're like recycling everything you bought. But on the other hand, in the Netherlands, you really have to be careful with what you put in, which also, for example, also the little lids that you have when you have a drink carton.
Yeah.
These are also a different recycling thing in the Netherlands, which makes me really feel that they actually have a plan, so to say, with the things that you recycle. So it's a double thing. On the one hand, you really want everything to be recycled. On the other one, you want to have the feeling that what you put in, what you put in for recycling is actually taken to recycle.
Yeah.
Because often also with like separating waste, there's a lot of talks also always that that's just to get us used to the idea, but that there's not really good ways yet to do this separation properly.
Yeah, I actually, well, you're touching upon something super interesting, which is the state side of it. For instance, in France, the recycling is really bad, and I know that we're, like, for instance, Paris must be one of the worst cities in Western Europe for recycling, just because the state does such a poor job of picking up recycling, and often you'll find the recycling bins are far away from your house and you have to get there, which is really the state aspect of it, and that's where the EU comes in, because it can put that like top-down pressure, but it's also really funny that you're touching upon something. It's like also the more you're aware of like the things that you're recycling, the more you think about like, oh, because if I mix this recycling with this recycling, it's not going to become the same final product, and then you're like, wait, what does it actually become? Yeah. You know what I mean? And there's this huge joke in Portugal and in Spain about German recycling. It's really funny.
Wait, are you from Portugal or Spain?
No, I was just traveling in Portugal.
Okay, nice. Okay, tell me.
But basically, you know how we have like those nice wooden benches in some parts of Europe? Like in the park, you have like really nice wooden benches. Well, you'll find that in Spain and Portugal, there aren't that many nice wooden benches because the benches are plastic. Okay. Now, why are the benches plastic? It's because the German government basically like is really, really good at turning its recycled plastic into benches, and then sells the benches to like Portugal and Spain. I mean, mostly on the regional level, so to like the town halls of those places. And it's really funny because there are parts of Portugal where there are too many benches for the people because those benches are so cheap and they're plastic, you know. And you're just like, okay, you know, like there's gonna be a moment when that's not sustainable anymore because there are too many plastic benches, and when you recycle those benches, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna make of them?
Yeah, that's of course, I think, the big problem with recycling, that we have the feeling, okay, I recycle, so I'm doing a good thing, but actually it, like we talked about it before with our team as well, it kind of postpones the problem, because after that use there's also going to be a next step. So what are you going to do with the waste that comes from the next use? So in the end, of course, it's really important to recycle, but maybe the most important step now lies with how can we use less plastic in the first place, so to say, and produce less.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just loops back to reuse, and I think that's why it's really difficult to think about a liberal economy in general, an economy of production, basically, or growth, with the idea of a really sustainable planet, because the planet, you know, it's constant renewal in like the way that the cycles function, and something about plastic in itself is it's taking something out from like deep beneath the ground that would never lie on the surface of the earth and creating it. And then where does it go, you know? So that like that fundamental question is, I think, you know, it calls for the disappearance of plastic, but
Yeah, like the idea is of course that in our current economic system we kind of assume that growth is always possible, but doesn't take into account that our like the products which we need to create this growth are ending endful finite yeah, in the end. So do you think there should be an economic change in that sense? A mindset change? I don't know if I touch on
where are the MEPs? We need help. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there is another way. I mean, to bring it about will be really radical, and we're gonna need help, and we're gonna need a lot of imagination. And I think it's going to be a good time for us young people to train our imaginations up to the challenge. You know? So yeah.
Nice. Do you think democracy, as we're in the Democracy Alive Festival, has anything to do with that?
Yeah.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah.
But I think there are ways of encouraging much more radical democracy, and that comes through education and like festivals like this, and not just you know, like surfing the democracy wave and being like, oh, you know, like life is great and we figured that one out. I think we haven't really figured out democracy yet. It can only get better.
Do you think something needs to change about how we see and how we have democracy currently, in order to also let democracy solve these issues that we have now?
Sure, but I think for me it's less structural than you might expect.
There's something with the microphones that if you're too close.
Yeah, maybe you want to use one of them because if they're too close together, the microphones get confused and then the sound gets
Of course.
great things.
Let's.
Yeah, we share.
Yeah, the thing about democracy for me is that it's. I'm gonna have to go soon, by the way.
Yeah, sure.
But it's not like a structural problem in the sense of like the way that institutions work. For instance, the EU's not so bad at democracy. Technically, it's a utopian democracy the way it works. You know, it's like really trying to get all those points of views and make something constructive out of them. It's not always recognized that way, but yeah, I think it lies in education. I think it lies in basically empowering young people to imagine, you know, new political thought, and to counter political thought, and to not think of democracy as like a choice. You know, it's also a creative process. So I don't even know. You know, like, what are we gonna do? We're in the European public sphere. We're gonna. I don't know.
So if I can ask, what do you understand now by democracy? What do you think is a good way of democracy, so to say? Because you're saying that the EU is a utopian democracy. What do you mean with that? How do you connect the two?
I guess the EU is what it's trying to do is, for instance, like the way that the groupings work, and the fact that you can create a new group is like creating a new party. So for instance, think about Macron right now. He's in France. He's creating his own political group instead of joining a group. And he's going to try to rally different people all around Europe to have like a similar mentality and to create a group as well. And then also on the other side of the spectrum, you get like people like Salvini, who are like also like, oh, those groups that exist are insufficient for us, so we're going to create our own group. And he's trying to like rally all the like people who are into European nationalist sovereignty to get together. So that's cool, you know, like it could be like, you know, you, me, and here a filmmaker getting together and being like, oh, like, you know, the Green Party is great, but for instance, I don't know, Yannick Jadot, the head of the Greens in France, has a little bit too much of a liberal view for me, so it stops me from voting Green. So you start your party nationally, and then you're like, let's get together with other Europeans who have a similar view, and that's cool. Like, I like that concept. But the thing is, on the national level and on the regional level, our democracies aren't strong enough to empower people to be like, let's create something radically different. I'm not saying that things aren't getting created. For instance, Macron, that's new, that's out of the French political spectrum, but something radical that really endangers the economy as it works right now. It's scary, you know, and it doesn't go up to the European scale.
Because if I hear you talk about democracy right now, you talk a lot about parties and parties being created and these kind of things. What about the citizens? What is the role of citizens in a real democracy, so to say?
You mean as other than voters?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, the role of citizens is to have conversations like this. More. I don't think we have the time for that necessarily. So maybe that's food for thought. How do we create more spaces and more times when, you know, citizens like you and I can just sit down and think this through?
Yeah. So I've been thinking a lot about direct democracy in the sense that you're talking about sitting together and talking about these things. I have the feeling there should also be a way to let these thoughts and things actually come and reach politics and have them kind of have a way to enter the political thought and in that sense change politics in that way. That's how I see that democracy could be changed to actually help figure out these problems. Because I feel like when we're talking with people about climate change, people have so many ideas under the dome. People are always telling these stories and I'm like, where is this coming from? Especially when they start like, yeah, I don't know anything about the topic, and then they're inside and they start this whole discussion about it and they have opinions and ideas and stuff like that. And I think if those ideas could actually reach politics and change something in that way, I think that could be part of the problem, not part of the problem, part of the solution to the problem.
Yeah. Have you thought about collaborative platforms? You know, like, is that what you're interested in part? You know, those like online platforms where you can like, well, there's like the first part, which is like signing a petition, and then there's the second part, like actually, you know, like voting for concrete reforms. Hello. Yeah, have you thought about those contributive platforms where you like vote for a reform and then like let it come up? Because they're a huge thing in France, like participative democracy.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. Yeah, but often that's hard to make that grassroots because citizens have all these proposals, but at the end of the day, most of these platforms are still parties reaching out with proposals and citizens voting. So making that more of an exchange will be the work of tomorrow.
Welcome to our new host. Is it a problem to do it in English for you?
I'm a native English speaker.
Ah, perfect. Nice. Thank you very much. Okay, we're a very cozy Europe Dome today. Welcome. Do you mind being filmed by the camera?
It's okay.
Perfect.
I only have a few minutes, but
that's fine. If you just want to give some input, we were talking about plastic waste. Would you like to give like maybe something of your own experience about plastic waste, something you experienced yourself, which indicated the problem or non-problem?
well, I think the interesting thing that is that plastic waste doesn't stay put. It's actually quite mobile. And I worked as a park ranger in the United States in the desert, and then if somebody throws a piece of plastic away, it just goes somewhere. And I also I've seen that as a scuba diver. Like scuba clubs often will do trash cleanups away from the beach, even kilometers away from the beach, because they know the wind will blow the trash down the valley into the ocean. So yeah, it's a problem that crosses borders that way, and it's also because it crosses borders in terms of production. So it comes from somewhere to somewhere. We don't produce so much plastic in Europe, but we use a lot of plastic. So it is a very international problem.
Yeah, do you think if we talk about solving this problem, should there be like more responsibility with us as the citizens, or with politics, or with companies, or how do you envision that?
Well, I think it is of course a trick by the companies to say it's the fault of the consumer because they keep buying the bottles of water or whatever. You can only buy what is in the store, and you exist in a system. So it's up to the companies and the political regulators to make a good situation so the consumers can have a good choice to make. And I think most people don't like, they don't want more plastic, they want less plastic.
And so when we're talking about politics, we're in the Eurodome currently. What do you think an institution like Europe, like the EU, could do or has the responsibility to do actually against such a problem?
Well, I'm not a policy expert, so I leave that to groups like Rethink Plastic, who I think are doing very good work on this topic. I myself work for We Move, and we're more focused on getting people heard. So with Rethink Plastic, they wanted to push for this new directive last year, which I think is a good step forward, although it's not everything. It's not where we need to be, but it is better than we were a year ago. And just helping them get heard and helping people get heard with the politicians. And of course, this is a big challenge in the European Union, where often it feels the decision makers are very far away from the individual citizens. So
I find it very interesting what you say. Do you think that you're also at the Democracy Alive Festival currently, that democracy has a role in changing this problem, or could have a role, play a role?
No, I think you have different actors. You have the companies and the governments. The governments are legitimate actors, so regulation can be at a national level, but like I said, it is quite an international topic, plastics, because it moves around, and when it gets into the ocean, it gets into our food chain. Someone who is dropping plastic in the ocean in one country can end up in someone's food in another country, or lots of different scenarios you can imagine. And also the question about what you're importing. And so I think it is something for the European Union to take up. I'm not going to make any specific policy recommendations, but I have the people who I think are smart on that and follow them.
And talking about democracy, what do you think? Do you think that can change something? Democracy, more democracy, less democracy?
Is that a trick question? Are you finding people who say democracy will not change anything? I would think everyone says that in this space.
There's people that do doubt the how do you say, the intelligence of the people, so to say, or whether people make good decisions, or whether democracy can actually change something. There are people that have questions, and that.
I think the problem there is that people are not. There's lots of different people. Lots of different people make different decisions based on different reasons and coming from different value systems and that kind of thing. I think on plastics, it's become clear in the last couple of years that there is an overwhelming desire for this issue to be tackled, like climate change, like lots of other things. So I think it's not the democracy that's the problem, but it is, we have a bit of a problem with corporate capture, where the corporations have too much of a say relevant to the people. And I think that the European Union should have a bit of a think about how it can do democracy better, but I don't have easy answers there.
It's also not an easy question, indeed. Do you have to go?
I should go.
Do you want to have some closing words?
No, but just thank you for this time, and I wish you luck with the rest of your day.
Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for your input.